The thematic of a lot of our works is about our relationship as a human race, as humans, our relationship with technology itself.
Hi, Jesse and Dean. Lovely to see you. This is part of a series of interviews that we're doing with artists to talk about their practice and the studios that they utilise to realise their amazing artworks. So I've got a few questions I wanted to ask you about that. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are as a creative team and then talk about what are the essential requirements for you in a studio space?
Yeah. So we're a permanent collaboration, artist duo. We create sculpture, essentially, mechanical, mechatronic, robotic sculpture.
And we use a lot of technology in our sculpture, but I guess to us, that technology hasn't been the core of what it is. For us, we see the technology as being yet another tool. And in some ways, I guess, we see ourselves as visual artists who create a form of sculpture, if that makes sense. And I guess over the years, we've morphed many times, and we continue to evolve and change as we follow our interests. But so far, we've been doing this since about 2006.
And it's very important for us to have to be a part of every aspect of our practice. So we don't contract people to help us. We don't outsource anything. If we're not sure how to use a tool or use a material, we'll learn how to do it. And so we're constantly across everything that we're creating. We want to have our hands on everything.
So you talked about a form of sculpture. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what your idea of sculpture is?
Sure. I mean, I guess it's pretty difficult because we ourselves aren't fully across even what it is, because I think it's pretty rare and it's not common. We don't see that much sculpture in the realms of what we make. I guess we're inspired by a lot of artists who have been doing it for a very long time, but maybe haven't had the notoriety that many other artists have had. And so I guess it's a pretty niche kind of world in which we live, but our work tends to be mechatronic in nature. And mechatronic is an old word. It sort of comes from mid-20th century. It's a fusion of mechanical and electronics. So in a way, it's kind of us saying that it's robotic without using the word robot.
Robot's a pretty loaded term.
Especially today. And I guess sometimes our work even plays with what the term robot means and what a piece of technology that makes its own decisions might be
and
as well.
The modern concept of robot is AI, essentially.
That's right.
And that's not something that we're necessarily working with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Given that practice, tell us about what you need in a studio to realize that kind of work.
Lots of space.
and I guess it never stops changing. There's never a time where we've sat down and said, well, this is finished. This is exactly what we require. Because in the process of making our work, it never stops changing. It's always got something, there's always something new that we're exploring or something that we need to now scale up.
Mm-hmm.
For example, larger works that we've been building in the last 18 months or so have meant that we've built a lot more heavy steel-based sculpture. And that has meant that suddenly the importance of things like the welder, the lathe, big heavy-duty steel cutters, suddenly instead of being something in the corner of the studio, we've had to actually rebuild parts of our studio for it to be only those components because we were doing it so much.
And that's constantly what our studio is doing. It's morphing and changing to what we're building at the time or what we're interested in, what materials we're using at the time, what's necessary. So anything can be put away and brought out, and so it needs to be flexible. And we do have a lot of large power tools that are permanently installed, But if we're not using them as much, then maybe we'll relocate them to make space for other things.
So, I mean, I know that you used to live in Melbourne. You moved to regional Victoria. Um, has your studio changed because of that? Was that part of the reason that you shifted to, I don't know, have more space?
The thematic of a lot of our works is about our relationship as a human race, as humans, our relationship with technology itself, and the ways in which that can either be healthy or unhealthy, or maybe it's distorting our experience of the world. And we were beginning to feel that our relationship with the world was getting unhealthy. It wasn't nourishing us anymore. And I guess because as artists, our work focuses so heavily on that, we're really feeling the effects of a kind of crush feeling. And we needed more connection to, I guess, things that humans have evolved to be nourished by.
And it might be a cliche, but since we've moved here, you know, we have more connection to the land, I feel like we do. And we're on a bit of land here, we're on 2 acres, and we're outside a lot more. And I feel like I have more experience of the seasons more, and just kind of it changes the way that you live your life.
And as part of that, our studio, we have 2 studio spaces, a workshop and a studio clean space. They all have very large windows to the surrounding forests and trees and gardens, and we feel a closer connection to it.
So I'm curious, you've touched a little bit on technology as not necessarily driving your work, but as very much as a tool. Can you talk a little bit, as your practice has evolved, has your use of technology changed? Have you used different technologies? Or are you still, is it really still that you're interested in the broad, you know, range of options, and every project will drive what the choice might be around technology?
That's the case. The project or the work kind of dictates what we use to create it. It's rare that we'll get a technology or get a tool or get a material and go, okay, what can I make with this? It's not really how it happens.
In fact, I think that maybe when you first start out building technology works, you're very excited about a piece of technology, so you're looking for some way you can use it, but we've never found that to be, in our experience, a powerful way of making a work, because it's like a carpenter beginning to build a piece of furniture by finding a piece of wood without aim. And so I guess for us, whatever we require to execute our idea, we'll gain the skills or use the technology. It's uninteresting to us what these are. It's more interesting what they can be, if that makes sense. And that I guess because the thematic of most of our work is the sort of, I don't want to say mindless, but the open acceptance of whatever technology might be there, and just saying, yes, that's new, we'll have that, always chasing the new, I guess kind of drives that in us as well, that we only use what we require.
Given that you're probably spending a lot of time in your studio at the moment, tell us a bit about what projects you're working on. Be interested to hear.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, we are spending probably about the same amount of time in our studio as we did last year. It was a pretty huge year, and we've had to kind of mentally just put ourselves back in that place and kind of treat it as if we're just in the studio. And so we haven't had that kind of panic and urgency yet, but we've been tinkering with some ideas that we never have time for, because as full-time artists, you're generally jumping from one project to the next, or festival to project, or things have to still financially nourish us. And that's just part and parcel with it being your full-time role, is that you don't have that much time to just sit down and tinker with something completely.
So if we want to experiment, if we want to kind of grab some things and just play with them,
You have to schedule it.
You have to schedule it, and they have to become something at the end of it as well. So it's kind of a little bit freeing at the moment that we have a bit of time that we can just play without having it to be something.
I have no doubt that we'll be seeing these ideas that you're working on at the moment, you know, being presented at some time to the public, and we'll very much look forward to that. So thank you so much for your time today and giving us insight into your studio and speaking from your studio indeed.
Yeah,
Thanks
no
so much.
worries.